Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari, and today I'm talking about Brandon Sanderson and the dog's helping in the background. I have read almost every single one of Brandon Sanderson's books. I've definitely read all of his Cosmere books, most of the non-Cosmere, but there are a few just outliers that I haven't read. But reading all of his books and him being one of my favorite authors puts me in a very good place to give you advice on where to start reading Brandon Sanderson, because he's just so insanely prolific and writes like a couple books a year. It's hard to know just where to start. So with Brandon Sanderson, there's a lot of different places to start. There's no just like one place where it's like you start with this book. So I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to answer yes or no to those questions. And then that's how you're going to figure out which book to start with. I'm going to try to build a graphic and stick it at the end, but my Photoshop skills might not be the best in the world. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, the first question I have for you is, do you want to read something in Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere or something outside of the Cosmere? Now, his Cosmere universe is a group of planets that his books are set in. If you're reading one book through the other, you can't really tell that they're connected, but the overarching part of the story is these are all fantastical magical universes. So if you want to read high fantasy, you're gonna start with Cosmere. If you don't want to read high fantasy and you want to try one of his sci-fi novels or middle grade, something other than high fantasy, then you're going to want to read outside of the Cosmere. So I'm going to assume you want to read Cosmere and say you answered yes to this question. We'll cover the no in a second. Because Brandon Sanderson is known for his Cosmere books. He's known for his high fantasy books. He doesn't only write high fantasy, but that's what most people talk about when they talk about Brandon Sanderson. So we've decided you want to read the Cosmere. And the question from there is, do you want to read a series or do you want to read a standalone? Let's say you want to read a standalone. You're not sure if you're going to like his writing. You just want to read a one and done book. Figure out if you like Brandon Sanderson's writing before you move on. For this one, you have two options. Both are equally good. So I'm not going to lean you one way or the other, I guess, and that is Warbreaker and Elantris. Warbreaker, I know used to and probably still is available in full for free on Brandon Sanderson's website, but you can buy it at a store if you want a physical copy, if you don't like reading off the web. It's a pretty long book. So if you have the ability to pick up a physical copy or buy it from your library and read a physical copy, I think that would be better for your eyesight, but it is an option to read it for free online. It's not my favorite, but a lot of people really like it. The other option is Elantris. Elantris is Brandon Sanderson's debut novel, I believe, and it is my favorite book of all time. Not just my favorite book by Brandon Sanderson, it is my favorite book of all time. But a lot of people don't like it as much as they like Warbreaker. So take your pick, read the synopsis of both books, and then see which one appeals to you more, and then grab that one. But maybe you want to dive into a series. You don't want to read one of his standalones. You're comfortable enough, you want to see what reading a series is like. For this, I recommend Mistborn. Mistborn is fantastic. It's a wild ride. You are not going to predict the ending of any three books. I think all three books stand alone well enough. Because a lot of times you'll read a series where it's the first book is build up and introduction. The second book is just more world building and leading up to the plot for the third book, and then you get the big conclusion of the third book. Each one of the Mistborn books has its own separate plot that leads into the next book that has a big brain-shattering conclusion at the end of each one. I love Mistborn. I should reread it soon because I love Mistborn that much. Now, you may be asking why I didn't recommend the Stormlight Archive is a place to start, or Way of Kings is the first book of the Stormlight Archive. And for a very simple reason. I assume if you're going to be reading these books, you're going to read them like by themselves, or you're going to read them in order. So if you're going to read Mistborn, you're going to read all 3 Mistborn books before going to a different Brandon Sanderson books, and you're not going to just like jump around. The Stormlight Archive book 3 has a lot of Easter eggs for other Cosmere universes. So I think it's important to read Elantris, Warbreaker, and Mistborn before you get into Stormlight, so you can pick up those Easter eggs, because Easter eggs are so much fun. Can you read Stormlight Archive and not, like, without knowing what the hell those Easter eggs are? Sure. No problem. But the added bonus of the Easter eggs, I think, makes it worth reading Elantris, Warbreaker, and the Mistborn, the first Mistborn series, worth it. So you don't have to read the second era Mistborn to get into Stormlight. A lot of people don't like it because it's like fantasy western, but you want to read the first era first. So that covers where to start with Cosmere. Again, as a quick refresher, Elantris, Warbreaker, Mistborn, take your pick. All of them are great places to start. But maybe you don't want to start with high fantasy. Maybe you want to read something else by Brandon Sanderson. Maybe you're intimidated by high fantasy, or maybe fantasy isn't your favorite genre, but you hear such great things about Brandon Sanderson and want to try him out anyway. So I've got questions for you for this one. Do you want to read sci-fi? You're here for the sci-fi? Great. Pick up the Skyward series. Skyward's fantastic. A lot of people say it's like young adult. It's on the edge. It's one of those young adult books that an adult can appreciate. So you like sci-fi, you want to have space aliens and stuff, and you want to read Brandon Sanderson, pick up the Skyward series. You like superheroes? You're a superhero person? Great. Pick up Steelheart. So Steelheart is the first book in the Reckoners series, and it's a universe where a big ball of light appeared in the sky one day, and a bunch of random people got superpowers, and they're all evil. So it's a great twist on superheroes. I enjoyed the series very much, and I don't even particularly like superheroes that much. All of that's still kind of intimidating, and you're like, I want to read some middle grade. Like, I want to read Brandon Sanderson, but he's scary. Give me something easy to start with. And middle grade has options too. Do you want a series? You want to read a middle grade series? Read Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. I will warn you, this is a very, very young middle grade. So unless you are an actual big fan of middle grade and love reading young, or you want to start reading Brandon Sanderson with your like preteen or younger children, Alcatraz is the place to go. I don't particularly care for Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians, but I don't like young middle grade. You want a standalone for middle grade though. Is that what I'm hearing? Standalone middle grade? I recommend the Rhythmatist. Words are hard. This is a standalone middle grade. It's fantasy. It's kind of like a coming of age story. The magic system in this universe is based off of drawing and understanding these like chalk patterns and being able to draw these chalk patterns. And the main character is like a prodigy where he is amazing at creating these chalk patterns, but he has no magic to make them work. This is one of the ones that I love by Brandon Sanderson that I don't really hear a lot of people talk about, and it might be because it's middle grade, but I think this is a great starting point for Brandon Sanderson. All right, so that covers Brandon Sanderson, and you may be saying like, okay, you've given me a bunch of options, but where would you start? Where did you start? So I kind of cheated when it came to Brandon Sanderson, and my starting point was the Wheel of Time series, because I was reading that well before anybody had heard of Brandon Sanderson, and finishing out that series was how I got introduced to him. That's not how I would recommend most people go into Brandon Sanderson, but that's how I got introduced. The first actual fully Brandon Sanderson book I had ever read by him was Mistborn. I read the Mistborn trilogy and was like, oh, I love this author, and then got into all of the rest of his books, and I've been obsessed ever since. Where would I recommend? I'm gonna give you 3 starting places, and I think one of these 3 is where I would have started, and that would be Mistborn, Warbreaker, or The Rhythmist. But those are the 3 places I'd start. I know I should say Elantris because it's my favorite book, but I don't think it's going to be everybody's favorite book, and I think Warbreaker is actually more popular. So Mistborn, Warbreaker, Rhythmist. That's where I'm going. Final answer. Anyway, I hope this is helpful. I hope this is useful to you if you are intimidated to get into reading Brandon Sanderson. And maybe if you've already read some of Brandon Sanderson and you don't know where to go from there, this could have been helpful as well. Anyway, thank you for being here, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye.